Hi, Patri. Nice to see you here.
Hey,
So, how do you see the conference so far? The atmosphere?
I mean, people are very excited for sure. And this, we got twice as many people as last year, so it's the largest conference in the space. Um, I do think that there's kind of a lot of different people here coming from really different angles. And what they think the problems are, what they think the solutions are. So it could be like a big.
Okay, very interesting. How do you see the ecosystem? I mean, like, you talk about potential communities, private cities, pop-up villages, vertical states. How do you see this entire ecosystem? What it is to you, and what is the success factor?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way I see this all is that kind of our old ways of living are falling apart. They're not working in a ton of different ways: transportation, healthcare, food, government. And so we live in a time when we need to come up with the new ones. And so we have all these people who, in all these different ways, are trying to find the new, better ways to live. And so there's a lot of ways you can do that. Intentional community. You can say, well, what's the problem? It's atomization and separation. And I want to live with a tribe with my friends and want my kids running around with my friends' kids in the same little area in front of our house. And so for that, I'm going to build a community, a co-housing development. And that's one problem and one solution. And then, you have people like me who are saying, look, government doesn't work anymore. Government is broken, and we need to find new ways of organizing ourselves. And it's really, really hard to change things in the existing system, right? If I wanted to try a new system of government as an American, I can't just do that. In fact, in most countries, you can't just do that. You can't even do it by winning an election because a politician gets to propose a few different changes to rules. Maybe they have some executive authority, but the vast majority of the system stays the same. And so I'm coming from a software background where in software, we rewrite entire systems. I was at Google, we rewrote everything every 2 years from scratch. And we made it better and better and better based on what we learned. So I'm here saying we need this for government. How can we write a brand new government using everything that we've learned and try it out? And to do that, you can't really do that in under existing governments. You can only make small changes. And so I'm advocating for creating these charter cities, these new real estate developments that actually get to be their own regulators and write their own laws so we can try out new ways of organizing ourselves and find things that work for the 21st century.
You have been within this ecosystem, for quite a long.
Before it was here, I was
Yes,
here.
yeah.
It's nice to be in an ecosystem. For a long time, it was just me, shouting, "Hey, we need to do things different."
How do you see that philosophy, ideology, like like the shadow governments, parallel institutions? How do you see it? Because when you mention about software, we are dealing with individuals, right? But, but when we mention we're dealing with societies, people, psychology is a bit different, right? So how do you see it? I mean, what psychological partners, what philosophy should we be in mind in order to put forward that and move forward actually with this agenda of rewriting maybe the new government?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a practical philosophy. I call it the philosophy of science and of entrepreneurship, which is it's not that there's one way of doing things that we can derive from first principles, but to make new, better things, you have to come up with some ideas about new ways of doing things, actually build them in the real world and try them and learn from them. And if they work, great. If they kind of work and you can fix them, great. If they don't work, that's also great too. We've learned something, we can try something else. So, my idea is not any particular way of living, but a mindset of experimentation. And this is what the startup world is built on. You get a little group of people who say, I think I can solve this problem, I'm going to try this. Usually it doesn't work, but when it does work, we've learned a whole new way to do something. And so I'm just advocating that for society. Let's try new systems of laws and new ways to structure legislative bodies, new ways to hold elections, and new ways to regulate. And, I have my own biases. If we were sitting over a beer, I could rant about what I think the perfect society is. Well, that's not what it's about. just about giving everyone with an idea for a better society the ability to actually go try it, live that way with other people who also like that idea, and see what works.
What is the communication platform that best suits to this? I mean, in order to generate all this, and in order for everyone to get an access to doing something, what is a perfect communication platform?
I mean, I think that there's roles for different ones. I think that like long form text is great for a certain set of people. Then video is great for a much larger number of people. I really think that like video is the format. Basically, if you look at us like evolutionarily, like reading and writing is relatively recent. We were talking to each other for a long, long time. You know, we were making ape noise with each other before we had reading. And so I think that the fact that technology has finally let us, make audio and video recordings and send them around the world is really what's getting the word out.
Amazing, really interesting. And and according, I mean, just trying to kind of bring it to political level. I mean, how do you see this ecosystem getting political? I mean, or taking part in decision making, in global decision making. How do you see that process? Do we need a centralized coordination group? Push it on top to the guys within the nation state, or we don't need to talk to them? Or how do you see this political agenda evolving?
We're not there. You're very forward thinking, and I think we're just kind of not there yet. Absolutely. Look, if there's a bunch of small jurisdictions, then a jurisdiction with 100,000 people in it isn't going to have much of a voice in global politics. And right now we're just starting these. But over time, when there are a bunch of different small startup societies, then I think it makes sense for them to put their voices together and join the global stage. Like, for example, right now, my long-term goal, I'm crazy. I want to start new countries, actual sovereign countries that are part of the UN and are recognized. And at that point, those countries will have treaties. But the way it works right now is that we start these societies inside existing countries. And when you're inside an existing country, you always have to follow all of their treaties, which is great, right? Because we're not big enough to be out there negotiating trade agreements and environmental agreements. So right now we get to take advantage of the ones that already exist and just plug into the existing system. But as we grow, we'll outgrow that and we'll need to start making our own agreements. And the time when all startup societies collectively are big enough to make their own agreements, maybe when there's 1 million people or 5 million people, is going to come long before like the one biggest one is able to make agreements on its own.
So that's basically the critical mass that we are talking about. Like, I mean, getting. But here, one question that always comes to my mind is about power itself. And because when we're talking about power, most people, unfortunately, within the ecosystem, sometimes ignore the notion of the military of hot power. How do you see this hot power getting into this ecosystem at some point? I mean, because still I think, maybe I'm wrong, but still I think that at some point when you want to build a new establishment that make it robust, you still need hot power. Because not all guys are equal. They always should do that. Like, who want to abolish you, or want to hack you, or whatever. So, how do you see this hot power getting into this ecosystem? Like traditional way, or private military company way, or something very crazy new way that we couldn't even imagine?
I mean, look, I'm really into hard power in like smaller, closer relationships, but I feel like the power in a larger society is creating value for it, right? We have people trying to start societies that are based on people having the same values or being like-minded. And I think that's great for forming an intentional community, but at the scale of a city, I think it doesn't really work. Like a city is a much larger set of people, and if you look at the data on like why people move, the number one reason is economics. People move for jobs. and other things like family reunification is significant, but it's still much, much less than $2. And so I think that, it's just this is an empirical fact, right, about what drives people to move. And so if you're trying to get people to move to your new society that's a large society, trying to make a city or trying to make a country, I think it's going to be driven by there's more opportunity for them. And then, look at it, America. America had people from all over the world come. It's a million people a year sometimes in the 1800s. And they love it, right? They loved it because it gave them opportunity, because they were able to make a better life for their children and their children's children. So I think that, like, really, when you're doing small things, you want them to be heart-centered, but when you're doing big things, you want to have the economic pull. And if you make people's lives better, then they will love you for it.
Very interesting. And I'm interested in understanding the glue to stick people together. I mean, that sense of belonging. So should it be based on values? Like, I mean, people have the same values, getting together, building something, or should we base something on something else? I mean, how do you think? Because this is, I think, one of the most important things. I mean, people would come with euphoria to many projects. This is wow, but then they will definitely leave faster because they will not feel fulfilled, and they will see that they don't get anything, like you mentioned, all the opportunity. So how do you see this sense of belonging? What should it be? It should be like a religion, philosophy, or written document, or a video, or a movie, or something that people get people together.
Then again, it really depends on the scale, right? The sense of belonging that you can have and should have in the community. 100 people, I think, is a lot more than 1,000 people. And 1,000 people is a lot more than 100,000. And so having shared values and shared lifestyle, right? If you really care about a life without seed oil, you're running everywhere. It's a lot easier in a community of other people who are also living that way, that shared social. But I think that when it comes to the much larger societies, I guess I feel like it's turning things around a little bit. The idea that, like, a written document or something would give people the sense of belonging, as opposed to, like, they have a sense of belonging because they belong to something, not because of something that's written down, because of all of the little daily interactions, because they come there and they work together, they live together, and it makes their life better. And now you actually belong. And now maybe after that, if you start to tease out, oh, what are the shared principles in this community? But I do really think that there's a bottom up nature to it, where people think, like, engineering designs top down, like, hey, I'm going to come up with a bunch of principles, and then I'm going to get people to adhere to these principles. They're going to live together, and then you find out that actually they don't adhere to those principles. They mean different things to different people. Whereas if you actually get people living together and building society together, there are going to be certain principles that will emerge from that, and those are real. You can now look when society grows to 10,000 people. Just look at Burning Man. The Burning Man 10 principles, was written in like 99 or 2000 after like several years of getting together in the desert every year. They went afterwards and said, what does it look like our principles actually are, as opposed to beforehand, what am I guessing they're going to be, or what do I want to, like, impose on other people? I'm not saying you should have none of that. Like, you do want to put a vibe out there to attract people to that vibe, but I would just be really wary of thinking that you can, like, prescribe that as opposed to it.
That's very interesting, because if we look at the, I mean, all civilizations, especially for certain period of time didn't even have a state. State, for example, India. I mean, these nations. Because I met an Indian guy who is advising Modi, the prime minister, working with the government. So this guy would tell something very interesting to me, that the Armenians and Indians could live another 2,000 without a state, without like a nation state, because the value-based system that they have, like as a society, family, ethnic protection, whatever. So it moves them forward. So they don't need a constitution or a written document to deal with. And he was kind of bringing an example of a social contract, like the U.S. is social contract. So people get to this because they know what the U.S. is about regarding this social contract. So regarding that, I mean, don't do you see this ethnic diasporas is a moving force in this ecosystem? Because I'm not talking just about the Armenian diaspora or the Jewish diaspora. We have talked about huge diaspora like India and Chinese, which are not organized the way as Armenians are organized or as the Jewish are organized. But at some point they will be. They can, right? I mean, do you see this as one of the driving forces in building up this new establishment?
I think it can be. I think like I'm personally less focused on it. I kind of feel like that's the only way. I want to find the new ways. At the same time, like it's the most proven way to have a society. I mean, nation state, root of nation, is NATO, is born together. Um, and it's kind of like the most proven way to have a society instead of people with, same ethnicity and same religion, right? And then there's an automatic glue. And yeah, I do think that the diaspora stuff is really interesting. I mean, today, Shervin announced the network state for the Persian diaspora. Um, and one of our companies, African is a network state for the African diaspora. So I do think that it's, I think it's really interesting because one of the things that's important is the scale that these diaspora are millions, tens of millions, or hundreds of millions of people. And one thing I'm seeing in the space is people having like much too narrow groups of tribe, where it's like I'm finding 500 people who are most aligned with me, and like if you think of this in terms of like a sales funnel, like you have this number of people, and like this number of them will actually like being in an online community together, and then this number will be interested in like say moving someplace in person, and then this number will actually do it. You want way more people here to get like 1,000 people to move and live together. Only want tens of thousands of people who are who are interested. So I really like the scale of these things, but I think it's like a lot more plausible than a lot of the other ones.
Awesome, very interesting. The question that now I have is about the finances in this ecosystem. A lot of projects, of course, fail because of the lack of financial or because people work part-time because they do something else. And working part-time and building something big, especially challenging with politics, is not a good idea. Like, how do you see? The other day we had a webinar on this topic. I mean, like how to kind of solve this problem. Should people get paid if they work in this ecosystem? Like I mean, like missionary people who work there. How do you see this gap to be filled? I mean, what are the solutions? What are the investment prospects in this? Should investors invest in projects, or should investors invest in people?
I mean, you're always investing in people. I think it's a little bit tricky because like there's the startup way and the business way. So the things are really changing. So I'll give like one answer. That answer is like, yeah, and for my investment fund, I'm looking to invest in people who are full time, right? Or who are going to be full time with this investment money. And I totally agree with you. Trying to do something huge, as a hobby, like it mostly doesn't work. But I think that probably like a lot of people aren't able to raise money because in a lot of cases their projects aren't really investable. They have like a strong chance of a clear financial return. And I think that actually like there is like when you're in a hype cycle, there's money for bad projects. but there's always money for good projects, right? I mean, there's a ton of capital out there, and it can be hard on the people who will invest in things that are really new. But I really think that having something solid and getting traction and showing growth, like that kind of solves 90% of it. And so I do think there's a place for like nonprofits in this ecosystem, like Free Cities Foundation, Societies Foundation, City Institute, really. And the thing that so I'm mostly on the like the get paid and make money. That is the engine of sustainable creation. But I will say that, look at what we're doing right now. Is that the costs to doing things and the number of people you can reach, say in social media, the cost is so low and the numbers are so high. But I do think that there are certain valuable things that we can do on a shoestring or self-funded, and that's great. Um, but I think we kind of like it's great and it's easy, and so we have a lot of it. And what's hard is figuring out how to like what is making profit. It's taking a certain amount of stuff and making it into like even more stuff in a value sense. It's like how much does it cost me to assemble these raw ingredients, and then I turn it into a house, and then that house is worth more than the raw ingredients. And that's not easy. Very often the things we want to accomplish in this world, figuring out like, oh, I want to accomplish it, but like who actually values it and how much will they pay, and is it more than my time and resources to make it? That's hard, but that's how all big things happen, right? Not all big things. There's certain things like religions don't take capital, but like most big things that need capital only happen by turning capital into more capital. So yeah, I really, honestly, my investment fund, we're almost 5 years in, and my goal is to invest all the capital in 4 years or 5 at the most. We're only like 60% invested because I haven't seen the quality of project and founder that I really believed in to do this incredibly hard thing, to start a city that writes its own laws. To be fair, it's really, really hard, and there's probably not very many people who can pull it off. But at least from where I'm sitting, it's not a lack of capital so much as like a lack of really solid, credible projects where people are. It's not just me trying to put a deck around a dream, but working through some hard numbers as to will I be able to take this money and buy things within what people do.
Partly, don't you think that we should have a talent bank or something within this ecosystem so that it pushes forward? Not like schools, not like a campus, but like a talent bank. I mean, so that people who kind of emerge as the forerunners, masterminds of this ecosystem for the future that is coming. So don't you think that we need something like that, like a think tank or something?
Sounds like it. I would more take like the incubator or like accelerator model. I mean, I'm pretty down on think tanks and academia and everything. I really think like it's time to build, and talking is mostly not building. There's some amount of talking that's part of building, but like it gets to be a minority. If you're going to conferences all the time, you're probably not building something. And so I do think that there's room for finding people and like training them. For example, there's a lot of people interested in these ideas of making new societies who come from outside of the startup ecosystem or even outside of business culture, right, around the world, where there are like really talented people who haven't been acculturated into the basic practices that work for building companies so that they can stand on the shoulders of giants and not try to reinvent the wheel. So I do think there's room for that, but yeah, think tanks, it's almost a dirty word for me.
Awesome. Good. The last question is about the message. We would like to send to people who want to build something new or who are building something new. You need this and that, this, that. What your message?
try to find the best arguments why what you're doing won't work, the best reasons why your customers will pick someone else, and not like the worst reasons because you want to, right? Like, have a dream, but then you have to be ruthlessly pragmatic about the steps to get there. Like, really know, what am I doing? What is my value offering? If I don't know what it is, what are my top few ideas and how can I taste them? And just, go about it in a business-like way. Unless you're in crypto, and then just issue a token and hope people throw money at you.